All right. All righty. Here we go. Welcome to the Ramblin' Recruiter. Darren DeLuca here. And if you want to find the job of your dreams, subscribe, click the bell to enable notifications, smash that like button, and welcome to this very special live presentation of the Ramblin' Recruiter. I'm extremely happy to be with you here today on a Wednesday afternoon, the day before my 42nd birthday. So happy birthday to me. Yeah, right. I wanted to do something a little bit different this week, and this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and one that I feel really good in sharing with you all. So I wanted to do it live and off the cuff and unscripted, a little bit different than I usually do things. No editing, no filters, so it is what it is. And if I mess up, I mess up. So I'm sure you'll all call me out on that on the chat if I do. I do have my laptop. I am going to be referring to some notes from time to time. I am going to be taking a pause here and there to look at the chat. But this is going to be mostly off the cuff. So today we are learning about how to negotiate better job offers, how to squeeze every nickel of value out of every aspect of total compensation. And that's the big thing I want you all to take away from this presentation today. I won't call it a video, but this live presentation is to think differently about how you think of compensation. Because most people I know get terribly wrapped up in base salary, and they don't give any real consideration to the broader picture of total compensation in totality. And there's a lot of different ways to squeeze value out of a job offer that aren't necessarily base salary. So let's get into it, shall we? Smash that like button. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. I'm real close to that 1,000 subscribers. Every single subscriber helps. And just a real quick housekeeping procedure. You did not see a YouTube ad at the beginning of this video. This is a viewer-supported channel. Links to support the channel via PayPal and Patreon are below in the description. You can also support the channel as you do your regular shopping. Just go to target.com by clicking my referral link below in the description. And let's get into it, shall we? Just gonna check the chat real quick, refer to my notes, and here we'll go. All right, so part of the way I want to present today's information to you is to actually relay some stories of some of the biggest and most difficult to pull together and most difficult to get people to accept offers that I have ever been a part of. In nearly 20 years as a recruiter, I've pulled together some big ones, upwards of $750,000, $800,000 in total compensation, $300,000-$400,000 in base salary. So, if you happen to be watching Pete, Marcelo, Susanna, Patricia, you may recognize your own story. But as we jump into this, I want to talk through what total compensation is and what are some of the different elements of total compensation. Forget about just base salary for a minute. In order to squeeze every nickel of value out of an offer, we have to look at total compensation. So, where shall we begin? Oops. Okay, so there are many different elements of total compensation, and they are composed of different buckets, different categories of things. You've got your cash compensation, you've got deal sweeteners, and you've got perquisites. So let's look at the cash compensation pieces. You've got a base salary or an hourly rate. That's the big one. That's the one that most everybody's focused on. That's the amount of money that's showing up in your paycheck, and undeniably a very important part of total compensation. You've got bonus target, and then you've got the actual bonus percentage that gets paid out. And while those two numbers in theory should be the same, very rarely does it ever work out that they are. You've got stock, equity, or long-term cash, long-term incentives. These are equity awards or cash awards that are typically reserved for more of the executive level, but there are companies out there that hand them out like they were going out of style. Tech, for example, is huge on handing out stock options. So equity is a big part of total compensation as well. Retirement savings, 401k, and the match that the company is offering, or if you happen to work for the government or one of a few companies left out there that still does a pension, that's an important piece of total compensation to keep in mind as well. Paid time off or vacation time, sometimes they're used interchangeably, sometimes they're not. Now this is a big category here because you could have vacation time, sick time, parental leave. Many companies now are offering unlimited paid time off. That's a great benefit if you could actually take advantage of it, right? And of course, medical, dental, vision, healthcare benefits. Most importantly, how much do they cost and how much of the cost is the company carrying versus what you're going to carry? Any of you who have heard of a high deductible healthcare plan will know that it's very easy to make a terrible benefits plan sound really good. So it's something to take into consideration. Now there's a lot of other elements of total comp as well. Let me get these things out of the way. There's a lot of other elements of total compensation as well. Deal sweeteners like sign-on bonuses, relocation assistance, including loss on sale if you're selling a home. That is a huge one. That could be tens of thousands of dollars or more. Long-term incentives at the time of hire. Long-term incentives are usually pay for performance, usually something that's awarded over time. But if you can get them at the time of hire, that's a great added nut to your compensation package. Accelerated salary reviews. Now this is something that you might be able to negotiate. Let's say, for example, you can't get to that base salary number that you want no matter how hard you try. Well, an accelerated salary review might be a great way to get a little bit closer. And perquisites, right? Perquisites are not necessarily monetary things, but they're things that might save you some money. For example, a company phone, a free or discounted gym membership, a company car, discounts and or free stuff. Like, for example, the company I work for happens to be a pharmaceutical company. If your doctor were to prescribe you any of our medications, we get them for free. Great deal if you happen to have one of those conditions, which I hope you don't. Just going to refer to the chat and the notes real quick. Don't go anywhere. Smash the like button if you haven't already done it. All right, so now that we've got this huge picture of what total compensation actually looks like, I hope it's changing the way you're thinking. When it comes to negotiating a job offer and the push and pull that goes back and forth between you and the company, I hope you're starting to see that this base salary or hourly rate is only one small piece of it, that there's so many other ways that you can squeeze value out of a company without rocking the boat too much or negotiating so hard that you burn bridges. That's actually really important. I want to stress that to you. It is possible to negotiate too hard. I, in my career, have been a part of withdrawing 2 offers from candidates who just negotiated so hard at every stage of the process on every last little point that we came to the conclusion that they couldn't possibly get along with anybody and ended up withdrawing the offer. So while I agree everything's negotiable, and I don't suggest that you just take anything that's offered to you, even if they have met all your expectations, I would always recommend negotiating a little bit, but you got to be careful not to go too far. But anyway, now that you've seen all these different elements of total compensation, I hope you're thinking differently about this number. Yes, it's important. I totally agree. You know, PTO and vacation time is great, but I can't pay my mortgage with time off. I need cash to pay my mortgage. So I get it. This is a very important number, but there are many other ways to make up for a deficit here with any number of these other things. And vice versa. You might make up for a deficit in long-term equity or long-term cash with more bonus. You might throw a deal sweetener in like a sign-on bonus if the benefits were not as good as you were used to. There's so many different ways. You can take from Peter to pay Paul. You can borrow from Mary to pay Susan. It's just, there's a number of different ways it can go. So let's talk for a minute now. I mentioned a little while ago about some of the bigger and more difficult offers that I've had to pull together in my career. And I want you to imagine a situation now. It's almost Christmas, 2018, and we're desperately trying to negotiate an offer and get it closed before the new year for a gentleman who was joining our company from a competing big pharmaceutical company, and man, was he spectacular. He was an awesome candidate. This is somebody that we wanted on board, and he had a gambler's attitude, if you will. He only wanted two things. One, a specific number on the base salary that was a little bit higher than we were comfortable with, and he wanted this, LTI at higher, equity at higher. So we neglected the sign-on bonus piece. We neglected some other pieces in order to raise that base salary up over $300,000, and instead of giving him cash or giving him relocation, it all went into this, equity at higher. Over $100,000 worth of equity at higher. And he's a gambler, what can I say? If that worked out in his favor, he'd have cashed in. If it didn't, well, he'd still have a very nice base salary and a very nice vice president level job. So these are the kind of things that you should be thinking about. There are tons of opportunities to push and pull and move in different directions to make things happen. So now that you've got a better understanding of total compensation, I'm going to erase the board here. Let me just give you a quick second to write this down or take a picture of it, whatever you want to do, because I need to clear the board off here so we can talk about the next thing. It's very, very important and critical to offer negotiation. Two numbers, or rather I should say two ranges of numbers. Everybody got this? Take a minute, write this stuff down. I'm just going to refer to the chat right now, see if there's any questions. Okay. I'm assuming everybody's got it. I'm erasing it. So now that you've got this big picture of what total compensation actually looks like and all the different elements that go into it, all the different things that make up a job offer, let's talk about the two things that are critically important to you being able to negotiate a really strong offer on your behalf. One is the salary range of the position. And this number should be fairly self-explanatory, right? You've got a position that should fall within a range of salary and a bonus. Now, bonus is not typically expressed in a range. It's typically expressed as a percentage of base salary. So let's take a hypothetical senior accountant position. Base salary range is $80,000 to $100,000 with a 10% bonus target. So this is fairly self-explanatory. On the low end, we would pay $80,000 for this position. On the high end, we'd pay $100,000. In the middle, we'd have $90,000, 10% bonus target. That's important, but it's not the really critical important number when it comes to negotiation. The really critical important number when it comes to negotiation is something called internal equity. Write that down. Remember that. Internal equity. Now, internal equity is similar to the salary range, but it's a little different in that the numbers in the internal equity category actually represent the salaries of the people who currently work for us doing this job. So in this example, we're using a hypothetical senior accountant job, and we'll say we have 5 senior accountants. The lowest is at $82,000 and the highest is at $97,000. Okay, salary range is $80,000 to $100,000. The range of internal equity is different though. It's $82,000 to $97,000. Do you see the difference there? The lowest paid senior accountant we currently have makes this. The highest paid makes this. Now, even though the range of the position goes up to $100,000, what's the likelihood that we're going to go above the highest paid senior accountant that already works for us? Somebody who presumably has tenure and is a proven entity to the company. Do you think that we'll go above that? Probably not. And even if you weren't asking for $82,000, let's just say for the sake of argument, you were grossly underpaid, you were only asking for $70,000. Do you think that we'd go less than this? Probably not. Your salary offer is going to fall within these two numbers, and there's a reason for that. One of the major considerations that the HR partners want to take into consideration is equity and fairness, right? We don't want to blow out our highest paid senior accountant by bringing somebody in from the outside who's untested, unproven, and has no tenure higher than our highest paid person. And we don't want to drag the whole salary range of these positions down by bringing somebody in below the lowest paid. Internal equity, in theory, in a perfect world, which of course it is not, should follow a kind of skills, knowledge, experience, and tenure flow, with your lowest skilled, least experienced, and least tenured individuals being at the bottom, and your highest skilled, most tenured, and most able individuals at the top. It doesn't always work out quite as neatly as that, because frankly, people coming in from different companies come at different levels. But that should be the ideal situation. So this is actually the number you have to work with when it comes to negotiating your base salary. Now, once you understand that, then it becomes much easier to understand why salary offers come in where they come in, and get the idea out of your head that the company lowballed me. I'm looking for $100,000. They said their salary range goes up to $100,000, but what they offered me was actually $96,000. They lowballed me. Not really. What the HR partner is trying to do there is avoid blowing up his or her internal equity, trying to avoid creating an unfair situation by bringing you in at a level of compensation higher than our highest paid individual. See what I'm saying? There's a difference there. Now, I'm mentioning HR partners and I'm talking about internal equity, and I think it's really important to kind of define who the players are in this process, in the process of negotiating an offer. There are a lot of players. So who are they? And what are their agendas, right? Well, you've got the candidate, that's you, right? Your agenda is simple. Get the best offer you possibly can. Best offer you possibly can. You don't care about internal equity, nor should you. Now you've got the recruiter. I'm taking this example as if the recruiter is a direct employee of the company you're interviewing at, but frankly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even really matter if the recruiter is an external recruiter from a third-party agency. The agenda is the same. Get the candidate to accept. That is the recruiter's agenda. Recruiters are measured and evaluated on how quickly they can get the best candidate to accept the job. Time to fill, time to hire, and the resources, of course, that are used to do that. But the recruiter's agenda is to get your butt in the seat. So the recruiter, while they have to care about internal equity, they're forced to care about it because they'll butt heads with the HR partner every time if they don't. The recruiter's agenda is to get you to accept. So what I want you to remember here is the recruiter is your buddy. The recruiter is on your side. If you want a little bit more, the recruiter will do everything they can to get it for you because that increases the likelihood that you're going to accept. Now, the next player in this equation is the hiring manager. What's the hiring manager's agenda? To find the best candidate for his or her job without rocking the boat. If you turn into too much of a diva, too much of a drama queen or king, the hiring manager is going to lose interest quickly. But getting the best possible candidate for his or her open position is the hiring manager's agenda. And you've got one other person who's in this mix all the time, and a few others that may come in sometimes, especially for executive level offers, but you've got the HR partner. Think of the HR partner as the goalie. The goalie's job is to keep all of these players on the field, right? Keep them all in play and keep these two from running hog wild. Don't let the recruiter or the hiring manager do anything stupid in order to get the candidate. The HR partner's primary agenda is internal equity. Why does the HR partner care so much about internal equity? Simple, because if Johnny, who already works for the company as a senior accountant, finds out that you just brought in Susan, a candidate off the street, untested, unproven, no tenure, at more money than he makes, it's the HR partner that Johnny's going to go to complain to. And the HR partner doesn't want to deal with those complaints. So the HR partner will keep everybody focused on this internal equity number. So as you're negotiating and you get an answer that a salary range is $80,000 to $100,000, and then the offer comes in at $96,000, I want you to ask the question, is this offer based on internal equity? Are you dinging me $4,000 in base salary based on internal equity? If the answer to that question is yes, you know you're going to have a hard time getting any more base salary out of the equation. Time to start looking at one of those other aspects of total compensation that you can use to offset that, like Mr. M did with his $120,000 LTI at hire, like Mr. P did with a $30,000 sign-on bonus and $100,000+ LTI at hire. There are many different ways that you can go about this. Just going to take a quick pause, check the chat, hang out for a second, smash that like button if you haven't already done so, because I'm going off the cuff here, no script. Okay, so a few minutes ago we were talking about how you as the candidate are not really going to be able to beat internal equity. So how do you negotiate a better offer when you've run into a roadblock? Well, as we discussed before, first of all, think of total compensation. Think of compensation in its totality. The second thing you want to do is buddy up to your best friend in this process. The candidate and the recruiter should be best buddies in this process. Candidate and the recruiter equals love, right? The recruiter wants the job filled, wants your butt in the seat, and will do whatever they need to do within reason to get you to accept that offer. So the first thing that you should do is approach the recruiter and say, I'm super excited. This is great news. I'm really, really excited. You offered me $96,000 for the senior accountant role plus a 10% bonus. And I think that's a great offer, and I'm really close. I'm really close to being able to accept that. However, I came into this process thinking $100,000. My current compensation is $92,000, so 96 isn't a very significant increase. I'm taking more risk. I'm taking on a new opportunity. There's more risk involved in that for me. I'd like to see the rewards line up with that. If we can't get higher than 96,000, is there a way that we could get creative, put our heads together, and find 4,000 to 5,000 elsewhere? Now that 4,000 to 5,000 might be a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Yeah. Believe it or not, I know it sounds almost counterintuitive to think that companies like handing out sign-on bonuses. I mean, after all, who likes to just whip out cash out of their pocket and start handing it out to people? But you'd be surprised, because a sign-on bonus creates a retention tool. Companies don't just hand you a sign-on bonus and say, great, thanks, we're happy to have you. They want to see a commitment. So if they're going to give you a sign-on bonus, it typically comes with a 2-year repayment agreement that basically says if you voluntarily leave in 2 years, or within 2 years, you will pay us back a prorated amount of this money. Now, after taxes, you're not going to take home $5,000, but that prorated amount is based on the $5,000. So guess what happens? You're going to stay the 2 years. Even if you're miserable, you're going to stay the 2 years, because nobody wants to have to go in their pocket to pay back a sign-on bonus, and you're going to spend it when you get it. And the company knows that. They know you're not going to sock it away and wait till you hit 2 years before you go out and use that money. So that's a great retention tool. Another great retention tool that companies offer is relocation. And we talked about that a little bit before, about how valuable that can be to the candidate. It's equally valuable to the company because, again, it creates that same kind of 1 to 2 year retention tool. So a relocation package might include loss on sale of your house. It might include trips to go house hunting. It might include real estate fees. It might even include points on a mortgage. That is an enormous cost savings to you. So when you're thinking about accepting that new job at Google out in Mountain View, California, and you live in New York, guess what? That's a huge, very expensive cross-country move. And you wouldn't do it without the company's assistance in the form of a reload package. Once you take that package, they know they got you for 2 years. No matter how much you hate California, you're not going to leave, because you'd have to come out of your own pocket for like $60,000, and that's crazy. Nobody's going to do that. So, in short, I cannot stress this enough. There are so many elements of total compensation, and when you find that you've encountered a roadblock with one or more, look to something else to try to make up that deficit. Use the recruiter. Recruiter plus candidate equals best buddies. Use the recruiter to your advantage. Their agenda is to get your butt in the seat. Use the hiring manager. Candidate plus hiring manager equals even more of a love fest going on there. Those two individuals are right on the precipice of starting what could be a long and detailed working agreement with each other. They're going to be in lockstep with each other. Of course, the hiring manager wants you to come on board happy. The hiring manager does not want you to come on board with a chip on your shoulder. So they're going to do what they can to find ways to make up that difference. What you've got to do is get out of the mindset that base salary is everything. And if you can't get the base salary you want, What can you get? Can you get a sign-on bonus? Can you get a salary review in 6 months? Can you get long-term incentives? Can you get long-term incentives at the time of hire? Can you get them to move you and your family? Can you get them to throw in an additional week of vacation time? I know what a lot of you are thinking right now. The job that I work, they don't offer long-term incentives. They don't offer equity. They don't offer sign-on bonuses. An extra week of vacation time is very easy for you to calculate how valuable that is to you. All you do is take your annual salary and divide it by 52. You know exactly what you're getting paid every week. That's how much an extra week of paid vacation is worth to you. So use that as your negotiating chip. There are so many ways, so many different opportunities that you've got to stretch your thinking and stretch your compensation. Squeeze every dollar you can out of it. I'm going to pause there. Let me check the chat. Smash the like button if you haven't. Please consider becoming a supporter of the channel. The links are below in the description. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe. Hang on for 1 sec. Now, we've been talking a lot about how you and the recruiter are best buddies and you and the hiring manager can be best buddies and how you can use their agenda to see you accept the job to benefit you when it comes to negotiation. But what about that HR partner? We kind of talked about that individual already. And I made it sound like they can be the roadblock. Well, that can be true. But there are ways that you can work with that individual as well. If you haven't had an opportunity to meet them or you don't have any relationship with them, you're going to have to help the recruiter or help the hiring manager advocate on your behalf with them. And they like data, right? They like cold, hard, indisputable data, which can definitely work in your favor. So resources out there like LinkedIn, to some extent, Indeed.com, and Salary.com can be very beneficial to you as you prepare your arguments for why either A, you should get a higher base salary, or B, you should get something else in lieu of base salary. Use these resources to piece together your arguments for why what they're offering you is not aligned to market rate, or why your skills are more valuable than the people that they already have working for them. Now, that's going to be difficult to prove. It's going to be difficult to categorically say that, hey, I'm more skilled and experienced than the people you already have. But what you can do is you can point to the skills, knowledge, and experience you already do have. Maybe you have advanced certifications or education. You can definitely bring that to the HR partner's attention, either directly, if you have a relationship with them, or through the recruiter or hiring manager if you don't. In any case, when you're presenting an argument for an HR partner, it must be in the form of data. It cannot be in the form of feelings or emotions or rumor and hearsay. You've got to be able to quantify what you're talking about. So sometimes as a recruiter, I bump into my HR partner and we butt heads on where we think an offer should be based on a candidate's skills, knowledge, and experience. And I know that if I want to come out on top of that argument, it's not about being right and them being wrong. It's about finding a path forward together. I've got to present them data. That's how they want to see it. I want to hear from you. What have been your experiences negotiating job offers? Where have you had successes negotiating for additional money or additional other forms of compensation when money hasn't been a possibility? And what questions do you have on this? I want to hear from you in the chat and in the comments below. So In closing and in summation, the most important thing for you to keep in mind about negotiating a job offer is there is more to total compensation than base salary. And even if you are not happy with the base salary number, you can still squeeze a lot of value out of the organization without upsetting anybody by understanding who the players are, understanding what their goals and objectives are, and understanding how to get them to work with you and for you instead of against you. And you do that by looking at compensation in totality and saying, if A can't change, can B change? Can C change? Can a combination of the two be put together? I wish you all the very best of success in your job search and enjoy the rest of your job searching day. As always, thanks for stopping by and stay classy, YouTube. Subscribe, click the bell, support the channel. See y'all next time.